Good evening. Welcome. Hello, Nidhi. Good evening. Nidhi, can you let me know if I am audible? Can you hear me properly? Hi, Meena. Good evening, Ravi. Good evening, all of you. Atharv. Atharv, can you hear me? Let me know if I am audible. Can you hear me properly? Is the audio clear? Let's check what all we have to cover today. Today is technically day 7, but because we lost yesterday's session. Hello, Sudha. Good evening. Good evening, all of you. Can somebody tell me if I am audible properly? Hi, Kiran. Welcome back. Okay. Thanks, Atar. Thanks. Okay, Ravi. Thanks. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Let's wait for another minute or 1.5 minutes. Let's see. And then we can start. Hi, Swati. Good evening. Uh, can you tell me if you received my email properly today? Because I'm using a different emailing service. So I just want to confirm whether you got the email and then got it properly in your inbox or it was somewhere else like promotions or spam. I just want to confirm that because I changed the email provider. That's why things can get messed up slightly. Mugdha, good evening. Yes, someone says I got it. Oh, Ravi also saying got it. Okay, good. Yes, Swati, thanks. So let's start. Yes, Mugdha, thanks. Meena also saying yes, you got it. Okay, let's start with the color in landscape. We did. Okay, Atharv also got it. We did cover something yesterday, but then it was half-hearted from my side because I was running on UPS and I didn't know when it's going to go off. Uh, hopefully, touch wood, nothing of that sort happens today. So let's start without further further discussion on that. Okay, so landscape on colors in landscape. Okay, so color basically has three characteristics, three different ones. Value we have already seen, in which we saw that we can paint value studies like this, and still we are able to recognize them, what's the object in those and so on, without actually having any color in it. I mean, color in the sense, in common man's or common person's language, we say color, but in artist's language, we call it hue. So, red is a hue, yellow is a hue, blue is a hue, and so on. Okay. So, hue is one of the characteristics, then value is the second characteristic, and saturation of that color is the third characteristic. Saturation simply means how bright the color is, how pure the color is. You might have seen a few color wheels in which the bright colors are on the periphery, and as you go towards the center, they tend to become gray and gray, and at the center of the color wheel is a gray color. Okay, so even though I will show you an example later on, that how a red can be vibrant and a red can be muted red. So both are reds, but then one has more saturation in it and other has less saturation in it. Okay, so those are the three characteristics which we have to keep in mind when we are painting any landscape. And when we get these correct, then we are painting the landscape more realistically. And if we get one of them wrong, then the landscape looks something odd. Okay, so always concentrate on all these three. Plus, color is not an absolute value. Okay, which means if there is it how bright or what how the color looks depends on what is there surrounding that color patch. Okay, or if a red flower is there and if there is green around it, then it looks much bright, because red and green are opposing colors, or complementary color, as they say. But if there is a lot of yellow leaves around it, which are around a red rose, then the red doesn't look so vibrant, because the leaves are also vibrant because they are yellow in color. So and yellow and red are not complementary colors. So that is the fourth dimension of color, which comes into play when you actually apply the color and there are other colors surrounding it. Okay, so those are the things which we have to keep in mind in mixing every color in a landscape. Now let's look at what is limited palette. I did speak about it. Yes, Nidhi Bhatia also saying good. You got the email, Lakshmi. Yes, namaskar. So let's look at what is a limited palette. So instead of using a palette which looks something like this, which has a lot of colors, we use maybe just two, three colors like this. Maybe a red, maybe let me change the view so that you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so instead of using a color palette which has so many different colors, we just use one blue, one red, and then where are the other colors? White for our convenience, and then one yellow, let's say. Okay, so we use just three colors, three basics, and one white if we are painting in opaque. And then we can this can be called a limited palette. If we can add another color and still it can be a limited palette, because we are not using a lot of colors. Okay, and we are mixing all other colors which the painting needs, using these basic colors. So then it's called a limited palette. So the benefits of using a limited palette is that there is no confusion. Namaste, Shubha. So what I was saying is, when you use just three colors, then there is no confusion. If you want, let me bring back those colors. Okay, let's say there are these three colors, and a white and a brown if required. If sometimes I even don't use a brown, because we can make a brown using these three colors. So let's say, for the sake of discussion, we just use three colors and white. If we are painting opaque, if we are painting transparent, then we can just live with these three and then complete the whole painting. The easy part of color mixing with this kind of limited number of colors is that, let's say you mix a color in here using these two, and then if it needs more yellow, you know exactly there is only one yellow which you can mix. But if you had a set of yellows like this is yellow ochre, lemon yellow, chrome yellow. If you had three yellows, then you would have had to decide which one do I mix, because each one will create a different mix color or secondary color. So that reduces the number of options which you have and makes your color mixing very easy. If you want to make the color more red, then you only have one red which you can mix, okay, and not a selection of three four different reds, and you don't have to choose between them. Again, similar with blue, and that makes our color mixing activity very very easy, okay. And what it means is that instead of buying just a bunch of colors, or a box like this, we can simply buy colors which come in larger tubes, and we just buy them in a bigger quantity or larger quantity. What it means is that we have a lot of supply, plus because we are buying in a larger quantity. I normally buy even larger tubes than this, and because you are buying at a higher quantity, the per unit cost of color also comes down. And when you are buying uh, premium colors, the color they cost a significant amount. So it makes sense to use limited number of colors, but buy them in bulk, so to say. Okay, so then it becomes easy for us to buy, and we just have to buy one red, one blue, one yellow, a brown, and a white. Okay, if you want to go beyond that, then you can buy two reds, two yellows, two blues, and a white and a brown if required. So that keeps your, and even if you have those many colors, you just use one of each, and then you paint the whole painting with it. It also makes your life easy if you want to carry these colors with you wherever you go. I mean, one of the major learning activities in landscape painting is that you go to a place and then uh, look at the scene and paint it live. It's called en plein air, okay, or on location painting, which gives you a lot of learning than painting from a photograph, because you have to take very very quick decisions. You don't have leisure of time when you can put uh, unlike being in a studio and painting. So that makes our kind of response very fast. And because your painting box is smaller, it's easier to carry anywhere. If you had to carry 20 different paint tubes, then it would be difficult to carry it always, okay. So that way also limited palette using is much more easy. And then another aspect of it is that it creates color harmony by default. What color harmony means, they colors should look like as if they are coming from, or they are related to each other. For example, if you photograph a set of fruits, let's say a bunch of bananas in your daylight, and you see photograph the bunch in, let's say, led lights in the night, then these two photographs look completely different. Even though the bananas are same, the light is different, and that's why the yellow in one photograph doesn't look same as the yellow in the other one, okay. And the reason for that is that all color is comes from the light. Actually, the objects do not have any color. What they have is that they absorb certain wavelengths of color and reflect only one or two wavelengths of color. So when we say that this color is red, This color is red. What this pigment is doing is it's absorbing every other wavelength of light and giving out or reflecting only red wavelength of light. Okay, so that's why whenever there is no light, there is no color. You don't see any colors when it's pitch black. Okay, so that which brings us to the color harmony part. Whenever you are using very limited colors, whatever color, secondary or tertiary color which you are going to mix, are going to have these three components in it. So that is why the whole set of colors which are there in your painting are going to look very related to each other. Even though they are different, they are kind of relatives of each other. Okay, so that is why it creates color harmony, and you don't have to create it with a lot of effort. If you instead use a lot of different colors, different pigments, then creating color harmony becomes a challenge, because you have to uh, pay close attention to make sure that whenever you use one color, it's used in multiple places and not just one. Okay, so that is one of the benefits of using a limited palette, that you get a color harmony built into it. Wait a minute. Yeah. Which was the view? Okay. Now that's why it's very cost effective. Using a limited palette is very cost effective. It's very simple, and it creates color harmony without much effort. Okay, the best way of learning color is by doing color charts. What I mean by color charts is, let me show you. Okay, this is a color chart. You can see this is done using oil colors, and these are what the way you see it is that the pigment from the tube is on the left hand side, and as you go on mixing white in larger quantities, then you get the five different steps in terms of value of that color, and the value it becomes lighter and lighter value. Okay, so you will see that I've used many different colors. The first one is Prussian blue, second one is cobalt, third one is a green, fourth one is red, fifth one is a brown, very dark brown, and then it gets lighter and lighter. And this is only the first step of color chart. In the second step, what you do is you take one, let's say you take a blue, then you should mix it in every other color. Okay, and then get a secondary color. When you mix a blue with a red, you get a color which is purple or violet. You mix the same blue in let's say a yellow, then you get a green. Okay, so similarly you will get whatever, let's say these are 7 8, let's, how many are these 3 3 6 9 10 11 11 colors. So you will get 10 different colors, because 11th is the color which you are mixing in all others. And then you will get you will add go on adding white to it. Okay, so that way you will uh, make color swatches of all these secondary colors, and that's how you learn color mixing. Okay, this is a tedious process, no doubt about it, but then when you do it, you will understand color in such a way that nobody I mean, there is no other way to understand color much better than this. And it is said that uh, every artist, no matter what level they are, they should do color chart at least once in 6 months. Okay, I too do not get to do it every 6 months, but it adds a lot of color knowledge to you uh, very, very quickly. Okay, so you this is done using oils, but you can do it using watercolor also to some extent, because we are not the values do not remain so constant in watercolor or the mixture, because the color settles down when you don't mix the pigment well. The color settles down and you get a slightly different shade, but you will get a lot of learning even if you do this color charts with watercolors. Okay. Now let's get to a demo. So we have been doing. Are there any questions right now? Shubha Namaste. Yes. Are there any questions? I don't see any questions right now. So I will proceed to the demo part. Okay, let me switch the view so that you can see my table. And what I will do is I will paint a colored version of this. Okay, so I will zoom out so that you can see my palette. Even though my palette has so many colors, I'll be using only 3 or 4 of those. So I will be using a limited palette. Let me set this up properly. Okay, you may not see every color which I mix, because then I'll have to keep the camera zoomed out a lot. I'm just getting rid of this gray. Okay, so let me quickly draw that and then I can get into the color application. Give me a second. So I'm looking at this scene, this one, which is a square, and I'll be painting it. So I'll keep it here so that anyway, I'll draw it quickly so that I don't waste a lot of time there. First, I'll mark a square, and then the camera will come back. Yes, it's back. And then there is this large tree which is here, and then the road is kind of goes like this. And then there are these bushes, and there's a mountain here, and this tree is casting a shadow on the road. Okay, that's the overall structure or rough drawing of the painting. Okay, what I like to do is whenever I'm painting, I tend to stand up and do it, because that gives me a lot of freedom of movement, freedom to move my hand and so on. If I sit and do it, then I get restricted in terms of the movements, and then the brush strokes also come very restricted. I like to use a large brush. Typically you won't see a lot of people using a large brush even to start with, but that's the way I like to paint. And it's once you get the hang of painting with large brushes, then you will enjoy it a lot. Okay, so because I'll be painting in opaque style, I'll be starting from the darkest darks and go towards lightest light. So if you look at this scene, the darkest dark is this tree. Instead of black, it will be a dark green first. Okay, I'm using Prussian blue. So I'll be using Prussian blue. Then this is lemon yellow. And instead of red, I'll be using burnt sienna, and I'll be using white. Okay, so these are the 4 colors, 3 colors plus 1 white. So I'll start by making a dark green. So I'm mixing this Prussian blue and lemon yellow. And to make it slightly more dark, I'll add a brown to it, slight brown. I want to make it even darker. So some more blue and some more brown goes in it. And I'll keep it this much only right now. This I might have to increase the darkness later on, but for now I will use only this. Maybe at some places I will introduce it as much darker. I can come back later on also, but then I'll stop here. Then the tree trunk is much more darker than that, so I'm adding more brown to it, and then I'll use the edge of the brush to paint the trunk. Okay, I'll leave it at this. Then the next darkest shapes are these bushes. So they are also going to be green, but they will be a lot lighter, at least here. So what I'll do is I will add, what will make it light is some yellow and some white. Okay. So this is the same color, but I just added some more yellow and some more white to it. So I will use that here. When you paint opaque, you always go from dark shapes, or at least that's the convention. You need not always follow the convention, but it helps in most of the time. So this is the second darkest color, and this I will make slightly more dark and blue because this is near us. For now, I'll keep it very rough. I can come back and add details to it later on. Okay, then the next dark shape would be the mountain. And so for the mountain, I'll have to mix a color which is more blue. So I'm washing my brush and I will mix blue and some white in it. And I don't want it so much saturated, or I want to reduce the chroma. So this is where I'll explain to you what high chroma and low chroma means. This color is a lot bright blue, okay, but I don't want it to be so bright blue. So what's the opposite of that? What makes this dull is a brown. The brown will make it slightly dull, okay. So now if I apply this, can you see the difference? I don't know if you can make out the difference, but then this is what makes the color dull. And because I don't want this area to be very, very attractive, that's why I've kept this blue slightly dull. I'll make it even lighter in value by adding more white to it. So that's my color of the mountain, and I'll make the mountain slightly have a tip here just to add some variety. Okay, then the next color is the ground here is flat. Okay, it's a flat surface. That's why it's going to have a green which is slightly lighter in value, and that same will be here. Okay, so I want a green which is lighter in value. So I will use this same green as the source. I will add more yellow to it and some white also to it, so that it becomes light. And then I'll test this whether it makes a good color here. I think I can go with it. It can be slightly more light. and I'm painting some patches of green here inside this tree shape also, because I want that bush to look like a voluminous object, but not, it's not, it should not be a solid object. It's a hollow thing where there are some sky holes, as they are called. Okay, so this will, I'm using this same color here. I'll add a bit of brown to it to paint here. Okay, the next color which we are going to have is, let's see if there are any questions. Hi Nishtha, good evening. Yes, Meena, I'm using brown or burnt sienna as the brown color. And Rashmi is asking, I always thought in watercolor painting we use lighter color first. Yes, you use lighter color first when you are painting in a transparent fashion. Okay, so that's where you apply the lightest lights first, then the slightly dark and dark and dark. Okay, whereas I'm painting more in a opaque fashion where I'm using white also to reduce the chroma and make the color lighter sometimes. So that's why this is more like painting in oils or acrylics, where you start with the darks and go towards lighter and lighter versions. So that's the beauty of using gouache, because you are using uh, the same medium but in a completely different manner. So you get the benefit of painting in transparent watercolor also when you need it, and you get the benefit of painting in opaque manner when you want it. So it's that flexibility which is very, very interesting. Now let's look at what's, there is one more question. Why are you using, I don't know the name of the person because I don't see it, but why are you using watercolor without much water? That's because I'm painting in opaque style. So this is like painting with uh, acrylics or oil colors, very similar to that. Okay, so that's why I'm not using a lot of water. So generally I ask my students to paint it like that, then I also tell people that you can use a glass plate as your palette. Okay, because we have been trained to look at watercolors in a way which is always looked upon as a transparent color. Okay, but it's not necessary to do it that way. So and I see that students add a lot of water just because it is called watercolor. Okay, so to prevent that, what you can do is you can use a glass palette, so that you, if you add too much water, the color starts flowing out of the palette or from the glass. So you know that the water is too much, so you will control yourself. That's just a aid for learning or to control the amount of water. So that's why I'm using colors in a thicker fashion. Yes, Nishtha, as you are saying, the same pattern for color, in the sense that you always paint darks first and then go towards lighter and lighter colors. Yes, yes, that's what. Why not use gouache? The question is, if you can use gouache, you can use gouache. But here I prefer the flexibility of using the same colors. I don't have to buy different gouache colors and different watercolors. Okay, set of different watercolors. I can use the same watercolors as gouache just by adding some white to it. That's the advantage with just buying the same tube. Just when I add opaque white into it, watercolor becomes gouache like thing. And gouache is anyway uh, a medium which is not very, very freely available in India yet. There are companies which make it, even Indian ones, but you have to buy a whole set, which is against my way of painting, because I prefer using only a selected colors and then mix all other colors, because that's much more convenient. Okay, I hope those points answer your question. Now let's get to the next darkest color, which is going to be the road. Okay, for the road we have to mix a gray color, and for that I will not use a black. Okay, because black is kind of instead of use, it's a dead color basically. If you use too much of it, you can use red, black, but it's advisable if you can manage without it, then the grays which you can mix by using different colors other than black look much more interesting to look at. Okay, let's mix a gray color. So for that, what I'm doing is, let me pull this back so that you can see me mix a gray. So I'm starting with blue, and I want to make a gray so that it will have a balance, because the gray is central in the color palette or color wheel. It will have reds and blues and yellows all in it. So I'm mixing brown and blue, and then also I will add some yellow to it, and I'll see what will make it more grayish. So I think brown will make it more grayish, and some more blue also. You will not see it unless you add some white to it. It will not look like a gray. Now it looks a gray, right? So now let's make it more brown and blue and less of yellow. Now this is becoming a gray. And this gray is much more interesting to look at than a gray which you can make with black. I just want to test this. I will add more white to it, because I don't need this much dark gray. I will add more brown, and let's see how this looks. I can still go slightly more blue, and more white in it. I need some more white, so let me get some white here. Adding more white to it so that I get a gray, more brown. I can still make it brownish, and some blue. This is not same as the color which you will get with white color, black color gray, but then this is much more interesting to look at. Let's apply this and see how it looks in the scene. Okay, yes, this looks interesting. Okay, so I will apply this, and I have the focal area here, so I will make the gray light here and dark here. So I will start with this gray here, and I can make it darker later on if I need to. Can be slightly more blue. That's too blue, I guess. One mistake students make is that they mix one color and apply it over the whole area, whereas in nature you will see that there is no one color which is up, which you see everywhere. There are some variations in every part of the shape. Okay, so right now I'm just going on and applying this, and as I go towards the focal area, I will go on and add more and more white to it. You can also see how I am using the brush marks or brush strokes. I'm not using the same brush strokes everywhere. I'm using different types of brush strokes wherever needed. And I will gradate it towards this, towards the base of the painting. And this is also part of the composition. I want darks here and the bright lights here. Okay, so that's the reason why I have made the road very very light in the area of the focal in focal area and nearby, whereas in other places I've tried to keep it dark. Okay, now what I need to do is I will paint first the sky and then the shadow. Even though shadow is dark, I will paint it later on because this color needs to dry before I do that. So what I'll do is I'll again mix a blue color which is for the sky, and then I can apply it here. So for sky blue, I'm again starting with Prussian blue. And if you use a different blue and different yellow and different red, then obviously you will get a completely different looking painting. And that's perfectly fine because it's finally our representation, and we don't want to be a photograph. We don't want to create a photograph. So you will see that this is becoming dark because the colors tend to become more light when they dry, but I can come back later on and make it more opaque. So let's see how this looks. This looks nice, but I think I will have to reduce its bluishness as I come towards the horizon. Okay, so you can see how I'm applying it, how thick I'm using it, and that's because I'm using it like oil or acrylics and not like transparent watercolors. But this is still watercolor. So that's the advantage of using it in this fashion, that you can use it the way you want it and not only one way of mixing a lot of color, a lot of water in it and then trying to paint. So here I'm being very careful that I can come back and add these details later on, but let me zoom in so that you can see it more clearly. And I'm using the same large brush and making small marks. I will have to add a small bush here on the roadside so that it looks proper. Right now it's not, the sky is almost touching the road here. So towards the horizon, I will add more white and paint this lighter. Need some water on the brush. One of the perspective things is that if I want to make this mountain look at a distance or suggest distance, then I cannot keep the edge of the mountain very sharp. So I can drag a finger on top of it on the edge, and it will create a fuzzy or hazy edge, which will make it look like it is at a longer distance. Okay, because this painting is so small, I'm not going into a lot of details. But if you paint large enough, then you can go into much more detail for of the shapes and all that. Now let me paint a bush there at a distance with the same green color. So I'll use this same green, light green, and add a, or maybe this one also can use. And finally, it doesn't actually depend on what color it is. As long as the value is right, the painting reads correct. And I can add more. This was supposed to be a gray, but I'm using it on the tree or the bush there. If needed, I can use a smaller brush just in the place where it needs to be very specific or very pointed. So I will paint the tree trunk later on again, just to make it clean again, clean shape, and I'll paint it even darker later on. So now I want to make this area slightly more lighter in color. So I will take some more white and I can come in like this. And I can even start defining the shadow by painting around the shadow. So you can see this now starts looking like a shadow instead of the road itself. I will obviously make the shadow darker, but this also has started creating that effect. Now I'll use a smaller brush just to paint the shadows, and the shadows are going to be a darker version of this. So again, and brown, sorry, blue and brown. And let's see how this looks. Looks okay to me for a shadow color. And I'll just paint some shadow marks randomly. You can see that I'm using the brush not with its point but with the side, because it creates that effect of a shadow much more easily, and it doesn't look like a calculated brushstroke but looks more like a naturally occurring shadow. And here the shadow needs to be much more greener in color, so I will have to mix a dark green, so some blue and some yellow, because the shadow is falling on green patch of color or green patch of grass. So now the shadow is done, and I can add the central marks of on the road by again using a white. Let's see how this looks. This should be enough. We just want an indication and not a very bold statement of that. And now the final thing which I need to do is add a darker color at the for the tree. Let me zoom out. If you use a different set of colors, obviously this painting will look different, which is fine. So instead of Prussian blue, you can use ultramarine. Instead of lemon yellow, you can use uh, chrome yellow or yellow ochre and things like that. And it's all good as long as you maintain the value structure. Let's see how dark this looks. Yeah, should be fine. You can use a smaller brush if you need, but I'm going ahead with this brush itself. Okay, so that looks almost complete. I can go on and add refinements, but you get the point that with limited number of colors also you can paint nice looking paintings, and you get a natural color harmony, some distant trees. And I'm using now the brush in a dry format or very dry, so that I can make this slightly darker because the tree is very close to us. It will have darks and so on. That's enough for a demo. We can go on and on if required, but then yeah. So now if you see a close up of this, let me zoom out a bit. You do get the impression that this is a scene where there is road and there is sunlight and shadow falling on the road and so on. Okay, so that's the demo which I wanted to show. And as you can see, I've used just three colors: Prussian blue, brown, which is burnt sienna, lemon yellow, and white. And how many colors do you see here? There is a lot of variation in colors and their shades, and this is all done using just these three colors. And see how easy it was to mix all different kinds of colors, because there was no confusion of so many using so many colors and making decisions. So I hope that inspires you. Let's see if there are any questions. Okay, Amruta is saying good explanation. Yes, thank you. Rashmi is asking, why are you using a flat brush and not a round? Flat brush gives me a lot of room to create brush marks which are which are more painterly, so to say. Okay, and they're not like wait a minute, let me see if I can. Yeah, they're not like with a flat brush you get to make broad brush strokes, and they don't look then very calculated, because if you use a small brush, a pointed brush, round brush, then you tend to make small marks, and then your painting doesn't look confident. One of the things which shows as in your paintings as you go on gaining expertise is that your brush marks become much more confident. Okay, so that happens more easily when you use a broad brush, a large brush. Okay, that's why I like to use a large brush for that. And yes, you can use a small round pointed brush for details just towards the end of the painting process. Yes, I mean that's the way you can get the distance or the depth which you need for any painting. That's so much important for a nice landscape. And this, even though this is not the black and white gray, it still looks like a gray, right? It doesn't look like it's not the road color. It does look like the road color. So what you have achieved is this is what I was saying as the in relationship, the colors look different than being an absolute. Okay, so if you place this color against a white, then it will look different. If you place this against a blue, it will look different. So it's the whole impact which is more important than each individual shade of color. Thanks, Mosmi is saying it's amazing. Thank you, Nishtha. Thank you. Jyoti is also saying so much learning for us. Yes, thank you. Can you add more? Prabha is asking, can you add more details in the final painting other than what was in the value study? Yes, value studies are supposed to be very, very. You can see that in here also, if I zoom out, there is a value study right next to it here, right? So now see how similar they look. Okay, and now let me try showing you a trick in which I can make this video black and white so that you will see what I mean by values. Okay, just hold on. I'll make this video of the painting black and white, and then you will see that the color version and the black and white version are so much similar. Can you see now? Doesn't it look like a larger version of this? It's so simple, so close to each other. Even though these are colors, these have their own value, and that's what the beauty of studying color characteristics. Okay, now let me get the color back. This is possible because I can change the video color. Yes, and the color is back. Okay, so that's how what it means, that each color has its value. And now let me let me try to make this more saturated. In video you can of course make it, but I'm using this as an aid to explain to you what is saturation of color. Now if I want to increase the saturation of color, if I had painted this with a lot of color in it, a lot of saturated color in it, then it would have looked something like this, right? So when there is bright light the falling, then you get bright colors. Okay, when the light is not so bright, then you get muted colors, and that is what makes, so we get to control what is so if I paint bright colors, then it is like suggesting that there is a lot of bright light. If I paint with muted colors, then it is like suggesting that the atmosphere is not very brightly lit. Okay, so that's how you create mood in your painting. Okay. So, to answer Prabha's question, yes, you can add and you have to add, because generally, when you paint a value study, it is supposed to be a small painting. Okay, maybe this is just two by three, or 3 by 3. This is a square, so 3 by 3 inches, and this is maybe 5 by 5 inches. But I can paint this same thing on a 6 by 6 foot, or 3 by 3 foot square also. And obviously, because when the painting becomes, or the size of the painting is large, you can add more details to it, because it needs those details. Thank you. Sona is saying wonderful. So this is also a small one, but you made from this again. If you make on a bigger paper, how to give details? Yes, when if you make this on a bigger sheet of paper or a canvas, then in the focal area you can add more details to this tree. You can add some grass effect on in this corner. You can make this shadow more darker, and so on. Uh, because this painting right now, what I've done physically is maybe even 4 5 inch in dimension. I'm not adding so many details to it. Okay, but if you paint this large, then you can go and add more details in the focal area and not everywhere else. Okay, so that will still keep your painting interesting to look at. Nisha is saying very interesting use of watercolors and so much info. Thanks, Nisha. Yes, we have been. I mean, for whatever reasons, I don't know. We have been trained to look at watercolors as a medium of painting only and only in transparent fashion. But it's not the only way you can. Of course, there are great paintings which you can make in that manner also. But just by adding a white, you can make the paintings look so different, and use completely different strategy of painting and get good paintings. And the advantage of this method for beginners especially is that you can correct your mistakes very very easily. If this was transparent watercolors, then and you make a mistake, then it's probably or very difficult to completely get rid of that mistake. Hmm? But because we are adding using this colors in an opaque fashion, we can cover up the mistakes and we can make a good painting of that. Okay, so that's an advantage which this method has over the transparent one. Lakshmi is saying, now I found that when we mix more water to the color, leave some strokes mark on paper. Yes. If we use the color in a thicker consistency, it doesn't create so many brush marks. If we use it in a transparent fashion, there is more chance that it will make the brush marks visible. Of course, it's not bad to have brush marks if you want them to have on your paper or in your painting. And if those brush marks add beauty to your painting, you should by all means show the brush marks. But it's not necessary that if you do not want to show them, opaque medium does give you opportunity to cover up those and make it look different. Okay, so now let me, at least for now, I have answered all the questions which have been posted live. Let me go back and try to answer some questions. So I'll get this on the side so that I can see the questions properly, which have come to me in email. Okay, so there were several questions related to color which I had not answered. So I'll answer them one by one now. Let's go back to this main view. Okay, there is a question from Amit Jain. He's asking, How can we handle perspective and lighting in nature and landscape painting? Perspective is part of how you draw. So that day when I explained perspective, I said, if you are able to draw what you see and not what you know, then you will get the perspective right. Okay, also there are multiple different things when happen when you see things which are at a distance, like the object becomes looks to be smaller in size, it looks much more grayish in color, it looks seems to have fuzzy edges rather than sharp edges, and so on. So all these things, if when you bring into your drawings or paintings, the perspective is achieved. And lighting, the question is about lighting in nature and landscape painting. All what we paint is light, basically we paint reflected light. Okay, so just like I gave a demo of how I painted this scene, you have to decide what is the focal area, what kind of colors will make or create the mood which you want, and then paint the scene using that. And just for an exercise, you can use one set of blue, red, and yellow, and paint, make one version of the painting, use a different blue, red, and yellow, and make a different painting, and you will see what kind of light effects it creates, and then that will give you a good idea of what kind of lighting you need and how to create that. There is one question from Jayashri Sulak. Is it necessary to mix blue rather than direct black color for distant objects? Yes, because our atmosphere reflects blue color and absorbs all other colors or wavelengths. That is why our sky looks blue. Okay, so whenever there is a distant object which we want to show, you have to add more blue to it, not black. Okay, so that's the theory behind it, that the objects look much more blue and blue as they recede into distance. Priya Sisodia is asking, to use different colors, my watercolor get messy. So the best answer to that is use a limited palette, just one red, one blue, one yellow, and a white, and that should solve your color mess completely. So just follow limited palette. Uh, Farheen Banu is asking, I want to know how to mix and match the colors in landscape paintings. So as I demonstrated today, how you saw how, or if you are watching a recording later on, you can see how I created. I used just three colors: brown, uh, so which was burnt sienna, Prussian blue, and lemon yellow, and created these different shades of green, different grays, and so on. Okay, so that's the way you mix. Once you get the hang of it, you can pretty much create any color, and it becomes much more easy when you use a limited number of colors on your palette at a time. Srinivas K is asking what basic colors we need for landscape painting. Just three primaries and a white should do the job for you. Uh, how do you make grays for distant trees or mountains or clouds? This is a question from Meena. And in this video itself, I showed you how to make a road gray, how to make gray or bluish gray of a distant mountain, and so on. So we all these. Let me again show you this painting. You can see that this painting doesn't have a lot of, or rather doesn't have pure colors anywhere. Okay, this is a gray, this is a gray, this is also a gray, this is not a white, this is not a bright blue. The mountain is blue but it's not bright blue, so it's a gray. This sky is also not pure blue, so it's a gray. This tree is also a gray. So in fact, 90 to 95% of your painting should be a combination of different grays, and not bright colors. So there is no bright yellow anywhere, there is no bright blue anywhere, there is no bright red anywhere in this. Okay, in nature also you will not see such bright colors on a large scale. Maybe a flower is there which is bright red, but it will be very small. Otherwise all other areas, even if they have red, they'll be in smaller quantity and very muted red. Okay, so that's how you mix all the grays which you need. And if you can use or and get trained to mix different grays, then your paintings look much sophisticated than using pure colors. If you use all pure colors in your painting, the painting looks garish and doesn't look realistic at all. So coming back to the questions, Shubha Raju is asking, I want to know about color theory, especially about warms and cools. Okay, warm and cool is a relative term. So there are generally the reds and yellows and oranges are called warm colors, and blues and greens are called more of cool colors. Okay, but they are also relative to each other. Okay, so if you get any two colors, there is a warm version of it. And let's say even if there is a blue which is supposed to be a blue, is a cool color, but if you take cerulean blue and if you take ultramarine blue is much more warmer than cerulean blue, because ultramarine blue has more red in it. Okay, so these are all relative things. So even it's easy to understand what is warm and cool in terms of if it's a red versus a blue. Okay, whereas within the close by colors like a blue green and a green, there is a warmer shade of green and cooler shade of green. The green which has more blue in it is a cooler green, and which has less blue in it is a warmer green. Okay, and so on. So there is no absolute warm or absolute green cool color. This is a relative concept. Mamta Mathur is asking how to enhance brightness of color. My paintings are not so bright. That's because one of the reasons, I don't know whether you are painting, I don't know in which medium you are painting, but if you are painting in watercolors, wherever you need bright colors, you should use pure color, pure pigment, and that should not be layered with another any other layer. Okay, so in pure watercolor, there is a lot of importance given to making the first brush stroke and leaving it alone. Don't overlap it. Okay, if you keep on overlapping one layer of color with another in transparent watercolors, then the colors look muddy, because you're trying to mix too many things or having too many layers. If you are painting with opaque mediums and if your colors don't look bright, then the reason is somehow white or a black is getting into your colors. Okay, if it's there on palette and if you apply first color which has a white or a black in it, somehow that color ends up into your next mixture. Okay, and then you get a muddy color range. Okay, so don't do that. So try to keep and use limited colors, so that will also prevent you from making too many mixtures. Okay, I think this is related. This question is related to the membership. Kanak Chaturvedi is asking which type of color we use: water, oil, acrylic, or some other. As I've mentioned earlier, also in the weekly demos, we use transparent watercolor and gouache. The way I showed the demo today, that's because it's easier to for me to show it this way. Whereas we have videos which are painted in oils and acrylics, because the oil medium is requires a lot of things to be around. It's not easy for me to show it. Some days I will show how to paint, how I'm painting live oil colors, but it needs more preparation. And then anyway, you won't be able to paint in oils when you are watching this video. Okay, when you are watching the live video, whereas you will watch the video later on and paint some other time. So that purpose is served by the recorded videos which I do, wherein I can get to use larger area, and then I can use all my oil painting material and have camera at a distance so that it doesn't get covered with any kind of oil and so on. So this painting which I showed you today in a demo is painted in the same technique which you would use for oils and acrylics. So if you want, you can use this same painting and try to paint it in those mediums. It's not, I don't force you to use a particular medium, but you should give all mediums a try, and then you decide which one should be your major working medium, and which one should be a experimental medium, and so on. I hope that answers your question, Kanak. Let's see what's happening on the live chat. Okay, there seems to be some questions. Okay, Nishadas is saying yes, to have never thought of them this way. Eye opening. Yes, watercolor used in this manner is done very, very rarely. I don't know the reason, but then it's a great way of looking at using the same medium in a different fashion altogether. Nidhi Bhatia is asking, is there any advisable minimum and maximum number of colors that we should, let me show this on the screen. Is there any advisable minimum and maximum number of colors that we should have in our palette, mostly to cover different genres of still life and portraits, as well as not only landscapes? Okay. Also, if we can discuss this question for oil, medium, and acrylic. Quite a long question. Obviously, the colors which you will need for painting portraits are going to be different, because there you will use more reds and yellows and ochres to create the skin tones. Okay, so and it will not probably have a lot of blues in it on your palette. But when you are painting landscape, typically green is a major component of landscape, unless you're painting desert scene. So blue is going to be there. So at a time, keep your palette simple in such a way that you have only those colors which you need for that painting. Okay, you don't take out all the colors which you need for landscape plus portrait plus still life and so on. What that will do is that if you have too many colors on your palette, more than what you require, then you will waste a lot of time thinking about what to use. Should I use this or not? And then the palette gets messy, and inadvertently your brush goes into some color which you don't need to use, and then it basically complicates thing without any advantage. Okay, so keep your palette, or have only those colors on your palette which are required for painting that particular painting on which you're working. Okay, so if you are painting landscape, then you should have different set of colors. If you are painting portrait, you should have different set of colors. And this is same for watercolor, acrylic, oil, any medium you use. Of course, when you use a palette like this, you will have all the colors on it, but you should use this only when you are disciplined enough not to mix colors other than what you are supposed to use. Okay, if instead of lemon yellow I had mixed chrome yellow into the painting, then it would have looked different. Okay, and it would have created a slightly not so harmonious looking painting. Okay, so you have to make that discipline to use only required number of colors in your palette, and it will make your life easy. Sona is saying, thank you so much. I'm inspired to experiment, paint more and more. Now, as I always thought of making only one painting perfect, and that process, in fact, was wasting time and felt frustrated when not getting everything right. Yes, you should paint more number of paintings rather than spending more time on one painting. So, this a painting of this size will not, even if you are a beginner, this should not. Uh, take you more than 1 hour to make. Okay, and what if this goes wrong? What if this painting is not doesn't come out the way you want? Still, you have learned something. You can shut the sketchbook and keep it away. Tomorrow you get to paint another one, a completely new painting. Because one of the things which happens when you keep on working on one single painting is that you get bored looking at the painting. Okay, so it's also a way in which there is a way in which artists work, is that they work on multiple paintings at the same time. Okay, so today they will work on one, tomorrow they'll uh, close this and open this one and then paint on that, and so on. So that gives you variety, it keeps your mind fresh, and then you get better results. So don't spend too much time on one painting, rather than paint small and paint more number of paintings. Okay, Nidhi Bhatia is saying, got it, but it looks okay to have different shades of color like lemon, chrome, ochre together. It is tempting, but to have all shades of color, because the colors are very interesting to look at. But then if you have lemon yellow, you can make chrome yellow from it by mixing a bit of red to it. Okay, you can make an ochre color using this lemon yellow by adding more red and some white in it, so you get a yellow ochre. So it's not that I'm not saying that don't mix a yellow ochre. I'm saying use one yellow and mix all other yellow shades which you need to have. Okay, so that will make it give you a lot of practice about color mixing, and also keep your paintings very, very harmonious to look at. Okay, so as I have emailed you also, the membership doors are open. So if you are interested, let me show this again. You can join, because there were so many emails saying that I want to join, I want to join. Now it's the time to join. Let me scroll this so that I can show you the whole thing. Give me a second. Now this is the you can see that now this has updated this. It shows there is a early bird bonus if you join before 23rd, which is tomorrow, 11:59 p.m. midnight. Then you get a bonus. I'll show you what the bonus is. uh, the bonus is that I'll be explaining there are different ways you can monetize your art, and you don't have to be an expert to start earning from your art. Okay, I will show you. There are at least the seven major ways you can start earning money from your art. Of course, you need to put a lot of effort in that, but these ways are used by many artists, including me. I use many of those. I have used many of those. I don't currently use all of those, but then because of limitation of time I can spend on each method of earning money from art. But then these are, I can show you these. If you This bonus is exclusively for people who join before 12 o'clock midnight tomorrow. Okay, so you have about a day and few more hours. So again, as I mentioned that day, you can have self starter plan, which is 1200. It's the budget plan for people uh, who have a tighter budget but want to learn. And what you get in it are the fundamentals courses. All the courses are same which you get in starter plan, the tutor plan, and the coach plan. Only difference is that in tutor plan you get access to the live sessions which we have every week. Okay, so that's what this is the extra thing in this our tutor plan. And obviously because of that, the price of that is again 2500. And if you want to if there is somebody who wants to speed up their work and wants one to one interaction with me and guidance with me, then the art coach plan is perfect, which costs 7500. And as an additional thing, if you decide to join for a year at the same time, or pay for 1 year at a time, then you are almost saving money worth 3 months. So instead of this being uh, 12 into 12, 14400, it is going to be 10800. Okay, 10800. And this is equivalent to saving of 3 months, 3 months of fee. So similarly, this would have been whatever that 12 into 12 would have come. Even if I make it 25 into 10 months, it comes 25,000. So here it is 3 months of discount. So that's why it's so low, 22,500 if you join for the whole year at the same time. And similarly for the art coach plan. Okay, and here what is the advantage is that you get one monthly call with me, one-to-one coaching, and specific guidance for your stage of work. If you ask me, our tutor plan is the best plan for money for value, or value for money. And that's what I would recommend for anyone, unless they are either too tight on their budget, or they want very high speed learning and a lot of feedback from me. Then they should go for art coach program. But for most people, art tutor plan is the best plan. And even in the current membership, the major feature what people enjoy is the live interaction and weekly live calls, more than anything else, the art fundamental courses and the weekly project. Let me know if there are any questions in this. And the features are explained here. So art fundamental courses, then weekly video painting videos and live sessions. Private community will be on Facebook and on my platform. So you can choose, if you don't want to be on Facebook, you can interact on the community, in the community which is there on my own platform. So nobody else sees it. Even in Facebook, the community is private. So whoever is part of the membership only will be able to see what you post, and that you are in that. Nobody else will get to see what is there. So there is no fear of criticism by outsiders. Okay, all people in this membership are learning and at their different stages. So there should be no hesitation in sharing your work and getting feedback. And then you get reference photos for you to work from. And for the coach plan, you get 1:1 call monthly. Let me know if there are any questions. Will this be a live lecture? In the sense, I didn't get your question, Ravi. No, if you are talking about will the live lecture be like this? No, it will be much more interactive, because that happens on a Zoom call, okay, where you can show your work. Your videos can be on. If you want to keep it off, you can keep it off. Whenever you want to show me your painting, you can show it. You can unmute yourself and talk and ask questions. Whereas in this kind of scenario where it's telecast on YouTube and Facebook, it's more of one way talking. So that's what the difference between this live session and what you do, what you get inside the art tutor plan. Okay, so those calls are very, very interactive. I hope that answers your question, Ravi, because or you can email me, because you have already joined. Nishtha Kukreja is saying thank you. So, yes, welcome. I hope these sessions are helping you. And if you want to go deeper, obviously, membership is the way you can learn more. Oh, you mean the early bird bonus? Early bird bonus is the thing about smart ways to earn money. Yes, but only the thing is, it will be delivered somewhere in the second half of September, because I'm very, very busy till then. Okay, So and I'll be able to organize the bonus material also properly, and it will be delivered through a Zoom call. Okay, because only people who join till tomorrow night will get the bonus. I hope that answers your question, Ravi. Okay, so it seems we have come to the end of the lecture, or this session, not a lecture. Let's see what else is to be done. Okay, and tomorrow we will be talking about technique. Though you have seen some technique while painting this, I will talk more about watercolor techniques because that's easier for me to show it in this setting. And then you can use those in your paintings. So that is the fifth landscape painting skill which we will be talking, and again answering your questions about whatever you and others have sent, and that will be the content for tomorrow's session. So that's about it for today. Unless there are any questions, we would like to I would like to close this session here. So let me know if there are any questions. Otherwise, let's call it a day and meet again tomorrow. Okay, so it seems there are no more unanswered questions here which you have posted live. So thank you very much. And if you are in two minds whether to join or when to join, then the earlier you invest in yourself, the better it is. And if anyway you are going to register, then register before tomorrow end of day, because then you will get the bonus. If you join day after tomorrow, then you will not get the bonus. So that's the only difference. uh, and yes, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you again here tomorrow. Thank you. At the same time, 9 p.m. Thank you. Good night and bye. I'm closing the stream now.